So the ADAMHS Board of Cuyahoga County opposes any attempt to legalize, promote, grow, or sell marijuana for recreational purposes in the state of Ohio. This decision is congruent with the board's efforts to prevent mental illness and addictions and ensure that recovery services are available. The board believes that the use of marijuana is not benign, which is consistent with every other major medical organization in our community, as studies clearly outline the physical harm of marijuana, including increasing the risk of psychotic disease by 5 times, that adolescents are especially vulnerable to its many known effects, and in addition to its physical effects, the board believes that there would be ramifications on society, such as worsening a current problem of employers not being able to hire people because of failed drug tests, to retain employees because of failed drug tests. Also, if it's going to be legal, adolescents, it decreases that perception of harm. Because it's legal, it's just an age restriction. They might think it's not as bad as if, heroin's completely illegal. It kind of, if it's legal, it's not as bad. And also a potential increase of individuals developing addictions to marijuana and other drugs. Concerning medical marijuana, the board believes that it should be subject to the same research, consideration, and study as any other potential medicine, which would be under the standards of the FDA.
Can show that if you have a child that starts to use a drug, the earlier they use that drug, the more complications there are, the more likely that there are addiction problems. And if you're looking at an 8th grade increase in percentage of 8th grade kids using marijuana, you have a big problem. But what is clearly shown in this study is that Colorado has seen in this particular area, in the Denver metro area, has seen a huge increase in driving under the influence of drugs, with fatalities that are involved with individuals who have marijuana in their system. So when the blood toxicology is done, they show that there is marijuana in their system, and there may be a combination of marijuana and alcohol in there, but they have seen an increase in that. Possession of marijuana is a minor misdemeanor. It has been a minor misdemeanor since I started the job in 1988, which simply means it is equivalent of a traffic citation. It is a fine that is established by the court. It's a non-arrestable offense. Recently, the state of Ohio legislation have passed and decriminalized possession of drug paraphernalia, which would be the pipes, roach clips, or anything else that you would utilize it, which makes it also a minor misdemeanor, which means we cannot arrest for that. Only under very limited circumstances, with a person who fails to provide an identification, who fails to sign the citation, are they actually arrested. So it's not, we do not arrest people for possession of marijuana. The only individuals that I've ever arrested for marijuana are somebody who is trafficking in marijuana. If you have less than 100 grams of marijuana, it is a minor misdemeanor. 100 grams of marijuana is a significant amount of marijuana. It is a very light product. We are not going to see a decrease in crime. We have the same problem that we are going to set up with that Colorado has. Colorado cannot, those institutions or those businesses that sell in Colorado have to deal almost in an exclusive cash market because of banking regulations. The banks governed by the federal government does not recognize marijuana as being legal, therefore they can't use banks because of the fear the banks will end up having some problems with money laundering through the feds. So they have to deal in cash. If we have 1,100 plus businesses in the state of Ohio that are dealing exclusively in cash, tell me that that's not right to be robbed. We see candy every once in a while that's being imported out of state. That's out of state. We're not talking about a dispensary that's, on Lorraine Road now in North Olmsted that 5 21-year-olds go to and then sell off to some high school kids. And now they're in possession of some pretty good stuff. And we've also seen kids that will ingest processed or cooked marijuana. We've seen a couple of panic attacks. We've seen kids go to the hospital because of how that concentration of the marijuana is in the system is much different than they're used to.
What happened? Why didn't they make as much? Were people, well, we don't want to smoke the devil weed or whatever they would say. No, what happened was they found that because there was a 25% tax on marijuana, people were still going to their dealers. Because if I spend $300 on a gram with my dealer, or I can get it $400 down at the legal store, 40% of the people were still going back to their dealers, saving themselves $100. So they didn't make the tax dollars they thought they would. We take those things just like any other medicine, and we use what is good and right for the betterment of people's health. Of course, we had the edibles, which you've seen before. These are some of the knockoff products, the Pop-Tarts instead of the Pop-Tarts, Nugtella, Mr. Dank Bar, Claude, the black cherry gummy bear. You can have 10 milligrams per serving. That's the recommended serving size. That's 100 milligrams of marijuana on that thing. So to get the recommended serving size, you got to split that little guy up into 10 pieces.
And I remind you that our brain is not one homogeneous unit. It's made up of different pieces and parts. And as you just saw, different pieces and parts have different responsibilities. And if I were to show you cocaine, if I were to show you opiates, you would see those drugs impacting different parts of the brain. But one thing, and the part of the brain that they all have in common, is this reward, memory, ventral tegmental area of the brain. So all addictive substances, of which marijuana is potentially addictive, you can develop physical dependency, share that same common area. And you can't classify marijuana because it's a stimulant, it's a hallucinogenic, it's a depressant, so it really doesn't fall very well in one category. There's no other country in the world that embraces drugs like we do. We consume 60% of all illicit drugs used worldwide, and we are less than 5% of the 5 billion people on the face of the earth. And we've already heard about the edibles. Now, if you don't understand this, these are THC, the psychoactive substance, THC-infused edibles, much higher concentration.
So the bottom line for what we, the ADAMHS board, why we came to this position and what we want everyone to know is that marijuana is not good for your physical and your mental health. Its effects are especially bad for youth. Their brains are still developing. It changes. It can drop their IQ by up to 8 points. That can't be changed. It makes learning and work more difficult. The message is that it's going to reduce this perception of harm. It's going to make people think that it's less harmful because it's legal. It is addictive. There will be more people who will be seeking treatment, not just for addiction, but if it's going to cause depression, if it's going to cause anxiety, it's going to be causing some mental illnesses too. So it's people needing both mental health and addiction treatment. And again, with this whole aspect of medical marijuana, there's been no medical organization that proves that medical marijuana or that smoking marijuana is a medicine. So again, 1 in 4 people have a mental illness or an addiction to alcohol or other drugs, and 3 in 4 people know someone with a mental illness or addiction. We want everyone to know that treatment works, people can recover.